brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Now it's sippin' time.
Welcome to this Sips House episode where everything good in life is worth discussing. I am one of your hosts here today, good old boy Mike, and joining me here at the table is producer and whiskey and Scotch aficionado Jason.
Good to be here.
Also joining us here at the table is none other than the world famous good old boy Ryan.
Well, hello.
Our sip segments are all about wine, distilled spirits, tea, and coffee. We're going to fire up the bagpipes, laddie, as we're going home because we're going to be letting the sails blow as we're heading down to the southern island of Islay. Ah, yes.
Welcome to All Things Scottish. Our slogan is, if it's no Scottish, it's crap!
Well, we have no crap to taste today, do we, laddies, eh?
I'd say it's pretty good stuff.
So this is a great segment. In a great way to approach Scotch is really talking about things in the region. On this segment today, it is an all-Scotch show, and the region that we're going to talk about is Islay. And we'll go through some background about specifically regions for Scotch. The four products that we're going to go through today are all from Islay. And I'm going to butcher everything today. So Ryan is going to chime in and get me on the right track as we go around. We're going to go in this order as well. The Lagavulin, 16-year-old. He says correct on that. So he did Laphroaig triple wood.
Yeah,
204. How about that? The Ardbeg Uigeadail.
Wow, you're doing really well.
It's 3 of 3. And the Ardbeg Alligator. Those are the ones that we're going to go through. So I managed to get most of those correct. I can't believe that I've not butchered something right off the bat. So Ryan gets the honor of going over our SIPS ratings for today.
Well, we will be tasting and discussing the Scotch today and rating each one of these with the SIPS ratings plus our signature sounds. Here are those ratings now. 1, give me a glass of water to wash my mouth out.
Water. Bring water. Bring water.
2, nice, but what else do you have?
Well, isn't that nice?
And 3, interesting, I guess. What was this again?
Interesting.
And 4, well, let's keep this a secret to ourselves. And can I have just a little bit more?
That's classified.
And 5, oh my, I was unaware there was anything this good.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah!
Thanks, Ryan, for going over our SIPS ratings here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes. So we'll get to use those as we're going through the Scotch today. Let's chat about Scotch, and in particular, Islay. Islay, yes, I said it correct. Thank God. I knew I was going to butcher something here.
You are British.
I'm Scottish.
Scottish? Why didn't you say so?
So Scotch is from Scotland proper, takes on taste characteristics that are defined by regions, and we're going to talk a little bit about each of those regions right now. There's Highland, which is the bulk of the mainland. It's right in the center of Scotland itself. There's Speyside. It's unique to the northern coastal region in Scotland itself. There's the Lowlands. Yep, that's right. You guessed it. It's on the south side of Scotland. Then there is the region we're going to talk about today, Islands, which mostly cover the Northwest Islands, and it's actually divided into 2 groups, Skye and Islay. And we're going to actually be talking about Islay today. So I flunked Gaelic growing up, so that is absolutely true. And I am going to be butchering the pronunciation of just about everything today. You thought my French was bad? My Gaelic is even worse. I have tried rehearsing, but the Scotch kept getting in the way of all of my rehearsals. So the first one I'm going to butcher is Bunahavan.
Bunahavan, yes.
So, by my count, I think that's 3 drams so far.
Just keep drinking. Maybe it'll get better.
It's a brand new drinking game that we need to invent. Every time that Mike screws up something, any wording in Gaelic, you'll have to chime in and drink a dram.
Welcome to all things Scottish. Our slogan is, if it's no Scottish, it's crap!
So Islay is the southern island in Scotland, known for its influences of sea-producing very fragrant peat. Now, peat is mostly fuel in Scotland. It's actually a precursor stage for coal. So, and it's basically decayed vegetation, and over time it moves through a series of stages. And at the stage that it's used specifically here for Scotch is when it's called peat, and it moves through, 4 or 5 other stages before it reaches coal. So it's still widely used as a fuel product in many parts of the world. Peat is prized in Scotland for creating unique flavors with barley, which is what you actually use to make Scotch. Islay is known for being both peaty and smoky, and I think those are 2 words we'll be using a lot today.
Yes.
Many describe the taste as a medicinal flavor. They also possess notes of iodine, seaweed, and salt. Since it's all surrounded by the ocean, you can imagine that's the reason why that's a heavy influence as well. So here's my first one. Kulila.
Kalila.
It was close.
That was close. That was almost there, man. Is on the northern side of the island and across from Jura, which is directly between the mainland and Islay itself. Also produces a strongly peated whiskey. So it's difficult to talk about land. It's difficult to talk about Scotch without talking about the land, because the land and the two are one. The land makes the Scotch, and so that's the reason why it's always kind of, when you talk about Scotch, you're talking about the landscape as much as the product itself. In this case, the islands are renowned for spectacular scenery. The whole thing's surrounded by water, of course. Vibrant culture and heritage, as well as their abundant wildlife, including the golden eagle, which I had no idea that they had eagles in Scotland. Did you?
Nope.
Sea eagles, red deer, and the otter. The marine life is stunning and provides the opportunity to whale watch and see basking sharks, porpoises, and dolphins. So, I don't know if you guys knew this, but actually the Scotch industry is the second largest industry on Islay itself. The first is agriculture.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, it's a small island, and I'm sure that it's very difficult to get things on and off the island, so they really have to pick an industry that doesn't require tremendous influence of people or things to support those people as well, and distilleries are probably easy to do that. There are actually 8 working distilleries on Islay, accompanied by almost 3,500 people. They're actually called beaches. I probably butchered that. And also an estimated 60,000 geese migrate through the island itself.
I didn't know that.
So maybe that's where the turducken actually originated. I think of that as a a traditional German dish, but with 60,000 geese, I've got to believe that there are some good dishes with geese, with such an abundance of geese available on the island. Now, even though there are 8 distillers, there are many more brands. The same thing happens with other distilled products, in particular bourbon, which Jason, I know, can definitely attest that we have a lot more brands of bourbon than we do distilleries. And so we actually didn't come up with inventing that solution. Scotland had it way before us, where they had, multiple brands that were coming out of, certain distilleries as well. The oldest distillery is Balmore, operating since 1779, although Lagavulin has been around since 1742, but was not actually legal until 1816. So, I know this is all fascinating, and I'm sure right now you're going, I might actually tune out. Don't worry, the Scotch is coming. Please don't tune out. We have a lot more to talk about. And I have a lot more things to mispronounce, so you would not want to miss any of that. So, Ryan, Jason, and I are actually going to be discussing our top picks first, and then we'll make our way through the rest of the Scotch today. So that's a little bit of the background about Scotland and the Scotch that we're tasting as well. So I learned an awful lot, certainly with the background research, around this. I think that I knew the products and the distilleries, on Islay, but I didn't recognize the, the close-knit nature, of the distillery community on Islay itself. I knew that the distillers within the Highland region tend to talk to each other a lot more, but over time, as these distilleries have been bought and sold, and a lot of them are owned by companies outside of Scotland now.
Yeah, huge companies. Diageo is probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, and actually, as I was going down the 8 that are actually on Islay, I believe there's only one distillery that is actually owned by the distiller on Islay, or even within Scotland proper itself. So I don't know what that says about the state of the product, but certainly the balance and the consolidation in the distilled spirits industry is alive and well in Scotland for sure.
Definitely.
For now, at least.
Well, I don't think that has influenced the products that we're certainly going to talk about today. So let's get right to that. So up first, Ryan's going to talk about his top pick, his rating notes, and his sips rating.
All right, my top pick is definitely the Ardbeg Uigeadail.
Oh, wow.
I really like extreme scotches. I love the unchill filtered, high proof, very peaty, very smoky scotches, and that really does it for me. So I'm going to give that one a Sips, Suds, and Smokes 5.
Wow.
Oh, my
about that.
Yes!
Oh, my.
Yes!
I was unaware anything could be this good, and a good way of certainly describing, that Scotch as well. Had you had this before today, Ryan?
Actually, I have not. I actually collect Ardbeg, but this is one that has eluded me.
So we actually have 2 products today from Ardbeg. How many products do you know that they make at Ardbeg?
They come out with some special editions every year. The Galileo, Alligator, Non-Beast, Uigeadail, Corey Vrecken. They've got the regular 10-year. They've just released a new one that I think will be available here in Tennessee very shortly. The special editions tend to be $100 to $120. The 10 year is actually quite affordable. I think it's around the $60 mark, $50 mark. It's not that bad. So there is a wide range of what you can buy, from heavy smoked to not so heavy smoked from them. They have a wide spectrum.
It's too bad that this radio show is not smell-o-vision, because it smells really great in here. I gotta say, I'm just like, oh man, I
feel like the smoke alarm is going to go off any second.
I don't think so. The only thing that's going to go off is the Scotch alarm, because I'm telling you, it smells so good in this studio right now. It's just amazing. So up next is going to be Jason's top pick and your sips rating.
I'm going to have to go with the Lagavulin 16-year-old.
Wow, how about that?
And I'm going to give it a sips rating of a 4. Let's keep this secret to ourselves. Pour me another. But I will say this. Something surprised me, and I'm going to actually give this a tie with the Laphroaig Triple Wood, which I'm also giving a 4.
Oh, I don't think we can offer up ties, but okay, all right. Yeah. So you're going to give the Laphroaig a 4 as well?
Yes, I am.
All right.
And I will tell you, the Lagavulin is very much, in my opinion, a bourbon drinker's Scotch. Is very light. It's not heavy on the peat. It's got the citrus and vanilla that we're used to drinking with American whiskey. Laphroaig Laphroaig was just extremely interesting to me. It was a mouthfeel that I look for very much when I drink whiskey, and it's almost like a very wooded whiskey that makes your mouth go dry as you have the liquid inside your mouth. It's very unique and very interesting, and that's why I gave those two a tie.
Well, both very interesting choices, and I think probably between the three of us, I'm betting you probably get to sample a lot more products, across bourbon, whiskey, and Scotch. I bet you have, Ryan and I beat like 10 to 1 easily.
I do get to try a lot of stuff, that's for sure.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for your palate, as well as just your, knowledge of the products itself. Had you had a chance to have either one of those before today?
I have. I've tried the Lagavulin, and I've actually tried a lot of different Lagavulins. Laphroaig, I've never had the triple wood, but I have tried a bunch of other versions of Laphroaig. Like Ryan touched, each one of these distilleries like to come out with special editions, so it's hard to try them all, especially when you're coming out with 3, 4, 5 different versions every year. But I try to get around
a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you know of any of the problems with product availability. Where everybody's talking right now about the whiskey shortage. If you didn't listen to our bourbon show and our whiskey show previously with Jason and Juliana, you should go back and listen to it. A lot of great information on there. But, one topic that we didn't cover was, the fact that many producers are selling White Lightning directly is influencing some measure of capacity of their ability of aging products, plus the overall demand is just really going up quite a bit. Do you think that Scotch has the ability of throttling, that supply and demand problem, and is not going to have to deal with some of those shortages in the industry itself, product shortages?
Well, like you touched on, bourbon and American whiskey is very much in a shortage right now. But I will say that the bourbon...
Cumberland cask, $185 a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. But I will tell you this, the Scotch and the American whiskeys go hand in hand. When we age whiskey in America, we age it in a new white oak barrel. And then when we dump that whiskey out of the barrel to be bottled, we actually ship that barrel to Scotland, usually to age Scotch in. So when we have a shortage here of barrels, the Scotch actually will have a shortage of barrels also. So usually if a shortage is happening in the United States, then the shortage in Scotland is about 10 years down the road. So you very well could see a little bit of shortage of Scotch. However, the Scotch have one thing that they can do that we're not really allowed to do here, and that is use other barrels that are available, such as sherry casks or port casks or cognac casks or rum casks. And that's what a lot of these special editions are. But like you said, there's definitely going to be whiskey shortages across the world for the next 10 to 20 years, and we're just going to have to watch prices increase because of that.
So I think this is the first time that I've really understood the nature of that problem. And so I'm just keying off what you said. Is that supply problem related to the availability of new oak, or
yes,
is it just basically people are buying more bourbon than is being aged, or is it a combination of those two?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit of both, but when the recession hit the United States, the people who'd go and cut down trees, they would take loans from the bank to rent equipment. And during the recession, nobody was giving out loans, so they could not go and cut down the trees to give the new oak to the stave producers to make barrels. So some of the largest whiskey manufacturers in the United States, which are Sazerac and Four Roses and Jim Beam and Heaven Hill, then none of them have been able to get the amount of barrels that would keep up with the demand 10 years from now. So, also demand is increasing. These producers have formulas, and that says, I'm going to make 5 or 10% more product year over year to build brands. Well, when you have growth in 20 and 25%, you start running out of product. And, as people go from bourbon and American whiskey to Scotch and Scotch whiskey and aged rum, because that's what people are thinking the next two big categories are, you're going to see shortages in both of those for the next 20 years.
Don't be taking away my bourbon or my Scotch. It's going to get ugly then. So, Well, a really great discussion, and I'm glad I finally understand, the nature of, that discussion of the shortage itself. This is the first time I really heard it quite explained the way that you did today. So, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to take a quick break here, real quick, and we will be right back. Well, thanks for coming back and joining us for this discussion we're having today on Islay Scotch today. We have Jason and Ryan here with us for this discussion, and it's time for good old boy Mike's top pick. So, really great choices to go through today. And my top pick is going to be Ardbeg Uigeadail as well, same as Ryan. So, just phenomenal Scotch. I have a lot of Scotch. I would have to say that I'm probably a bit more of a Speyside kind of guy, and so it's. I would say the only one of these that I had tasted previously was the Laphroaig. That's the only one of the four that I'd had before today. My tasting notes around the Ardbeg Uigeadail are well balanced. It's just it's this very unique balance of peat and smoke and wood and alcohol, and it all is just this amazing moment that is happening in your mouth. If there was something that I was hearing, it was the bagpipes blowing. As this was just infecting my nasal cavity, and just the entire experience of tasting this was just wonderful. And I'm so glad we got to taste this today. My sips rating for Ardbeg Uigeadail is going to be 5. Just really quite amazing. I was unaware anything could be this good, and that is truly an understatement for that particular Scotch. So those are our top picks. Let's go one by one and kind of go through the rest of the balance of what we didn't get to talk about. Ryan, what else? You can talk about it in whatever order you want to.
I have to agree with Jason that the Laphroaig Triple Wood has this oaky flavor to it that gives it a mouth feel and a texture that is very unique. I will say that Jason said that the Lagavulin is a little bit more of a bourbon drinker's Scotch. I'm going to say that the Laphroaig... I think
approachable would be the word that I actually wrote down. Yeah.
The Laphroaig to me is actually my bourbon drinker's Scotch. Yeah. I think it's got that really woody, spicy vanilla to it as well. The Alligator... That bottle has been open for about 2 or 3 years, and it is just now starting to calm down. It's just now starting to become approachable, and it's just a touch sweeter. I will say that the Laphroaig and the Ardbeg Alligator are probably my top 3, with the Lagavulin falling last.
So let's go through each one of these in your sips rating. So for the Lagavulin 16, what's your sips rating on that?
I'd probably give that a sip suds rating of 2.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
And the Laphroaig?
The Laphroaig, I'm going to have to give a... Can I give it a 3.5?
No.
I'll give it a 3.
No, good old boy Jim, you cannot do halvesies. He always loves to do halves. So, so a 3. And the Alligator, what's your sips rating on that?
Alligator is definitely a 4.
Oh wow,
that's classified.
Can you tell that I like Ardbeg?
Yeah, well, it's showing really well here today, and so I don't think that it's just because that's what you are drawn to naturally. I think it's the way the Scotch is tasting today. The next one we'll do will be blind.
Ooh. I'm not for that.
Yeah, Jason, what are some of your comments about some of the other Scotches that were not? You've talked about the Lagavulin and the Laphroaig. How about both the Ardbegs?
Well, the Ardbeg Uigeadail is very interesting. I would probably give it a sips rating of a 3.
Interesting.
Which is, interesting. What was that again? And I would comment that it's very heavy on the peat, but it has a very leathery taste to it. Almost reminds me of, like you were saying, the bagpipes going off. It definitely is a Scotch drinker's Scotch. The Ardbeg Alligator. I will say that this one seems a little different to me. It's very heavy on the peat, but it's almost got a slightly bitter taste to me. So I'm going to have to give it a sips rating of a 2.
Well, isn't that nice?
I know that this might offend some other people at the table, but I will say, just for my palate, it's slightly too bitter for me. It's not what I look for in a whiskey. I like something with a little more sweetness, a little more citrus notes.
Capello, braver than a bullfighter with no knickers on.
Yes, he went out on a limb as he offered up that rating, just like a Scottish soccer player, footballer. So this is exposing a little bit of some of your palate disposition between you two as well.
Oh, we're exactly opposite of each other.
Yeah, definitely.
We've debated on this for years.
You're all peat, and he's all non-peat. So.
We may have to take this outside.
So I haven't tasted. I've tasted a lot of things with Jason, and a lot of whiskey, Scotch, but I'd have to peg you as a Highland guy, just based on some of the way that you're describing even some of these. Is that, would you even say that you're...
Or even the lowlands.
Yeah. I will say, though, it's interesting. I find hidden gems in all the regions, so I end up not trying to point myself in one region.
He's got to be politically correct here.
So I wanted to go through and talk about some of the ones that I didn't get to as well. So I think the easiest way is, let me talk about the other Ardbeg, since I picked the Uigeadail as my top pick. The Alligator. The one thing that I learned about this when we were reading through the background was, I asked you what was the difference, between the Uigeadail and the Alligator, and it's pretty easy. They basically just char the barrel differently.
Yes.
And come up with a different style of alligatoring, basically the char on the barrel. And, this is a technique that many distillers use to try and influence the flavor characteristic, actually by exposing more of the char. I know that they do this they do it at Jack Daniel's.
Wild Turkey.
Any other place of, Jason? They do that?
Did they do different char levels?
Well, they tend to almost artificially, develop the alligatoring, on the inside of the barrel, almost to the point that they'll actually score the barrel before they char it, right? Something like that.
Different ways to char barrels. You can roast the barrels, char it. You can even dry it out. But Buffalo Trace actually did a really cool experiment on the char levels on the inside of the barrel, which is one of their experimental collections, and that's really interesting. And that'll show you the differences between the different burns.
That'd make a great show.
Was that heavy char and hot box?
Yeah, that was the hot box toasted one.
Those were great.
So I think that even tasting these alongside each other, I didn't particularly care for the Alligator. Of all the ones we had today, I actually thought it was a tad hot, and it was just very peaty. And I just,
it is probably one of the peatiest scotches out there.
Those could be fighting words right now.
Well, he was defending it really quick, saying it's probably a bit oxidized. It's in a bottle that's been open for, at least exposed to air for 3 years. But even with that, my sips rating for the Ardbeg Alligator is going to be 3. So the Lagavulin was also a great Scotch. My tasting notes around that for the 16-year is that I thought it had more smoke than peat, but it was really easy on the palate.
I agree.
And very approachable was part of what, I kind of thought about this. I'm just kind of smelling it, tasting again here real quick, everybody. I thought if there's anything that's a crossover Highlands style Scotch, this would be it. I would say if somebody is just not wanting basically a peat bomb like the Ardbegs, that's a good place to start. Would be the Lagavulin, 16-year. My sips rating for the Lagavulin 16-year is going to be 4.
Classified.
Let's keep this to ourselves. And I probably would hog that, at a party and say, what Scotch? Here you go. Here's the Jack Daniels special. That's for you, buddy. Let's see. The last one that I wanted to review was the Laphroaig, and that's probably the only one I've pronounced correctly all day long because I actually stared at their commercial with the old guy standing Laphroaig. So I actually, got that one down, no problem. This, this reminded me of several other products as well, but I'll read my tasting notes for the Laphroaig Triple Wood. It's just pure smoke. It's like smoke wrapped in smoke. It's just, that layering effect of smoke is something that I've only tasted in a few products. The one thing that this reminded me of was Triple Smoke from Corsair. Oh. It just had that kind of layering effect, around smoke where it wasn't just very one-dimensional around the smoke. It just felt like something was, just constantly wrapping my palate and coming back around. It was something slightly different every single time, that I exposed it to air. It was just really quite an amazing experience on my palate, and that smoke wrapped in smoke. There was another Scotch at the whiskey tasting last year that had some of the same characteristic, and I'll have to go back. I really wonder if it was the Laphroaig. I'll have to go back and look at my tasting notes. My sips rating for the Laphroaig Triple Wood is going to be 4.
That's classified.
As well. So that covers the Scotch we were going to talk about today. Very interesting. Did you guys think that this was going to turn out the way that you did? Because some of these products you had tasted and some of you hadn't.
No, not at all.
No, I was surprised.
I didn't know that the Lagavulin was going to be as mellow as it was compared to the rest, and I didn't know that the Laphroaig was going to be as smoky and woody as it was going to be. Obviously you expect peat out of the Ardbegs, and you get that. I think the two that really surprised me were the Laphroaig and the Lagavulin.
Yeah, and I would be great to taste, a couple of the other distilleries, in another show, and actually look at some different characteristics of peat from Islay as well as peat from Speyside, and say all peat is not created equal, and it is as much an influence of the land and the peat as it is, what the distiller is doing here.
And the water, too.
Yeah, very much so. Mineral content has an awful lot to do with nearly everything. Beer, wine, not wine, but, beer, distilled spirits, anything originates, with a component of water. Certainly has a heavy influence in how it's going to taste, so... any of these you'd go back to after the show?
Oh, that's easy. No question.
Oh, well.
I'll take the Uigeadail, please.
Is there a product that you wish it had been here in here today that would have, definitely have stood out, in this tasting flight?
Just to give some different dimension to the tasting, I think Talisker would have been kind of cool because it's coming from Skye.
And Balmore, I think would have been interesting to have been, in the run here as well. I think that they have such a broad range of products from Balmore that's probably the only distillery I kind of wish we had today, but we didn't. So, but time got the best of us. So,
and I wish we had brought maybe a Lagavulin distiller's edition. I think that would have stand out from the crowd. This Lagavulin's very light, but some of their distiller's editions are very heavy, very peaty, very smoky, and would have been very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think this is a start of a number of conversations around, Scotch and, continuing conversation around bourbon as well. I know that we're going to have another show on Speyside in the not too distant future.
That's going to be great, too. There's a lot of different, there's a huge spectrum of what Speyside has to offer.
Yeah, and I'm already admitting, I'm very partial to Speyside, and so I'm looking forward to going through some products that I have not, previously tasted or purchased as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Well, thanks. Really great stuff, Ryan and Jason. Let's wrap up our Sips episode for today. Thanks to all of our listeners here at Sips, Suds, and Smokes. You can catch all of our episodes online on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, Uncle John's Basement, and Spreaker, our native media host. You guys have no idea where Uncle John's Basement is, do you?
Do I want to know?
No. It's a dude sitting down there. Change the channel again. I ain't watching that football soccer thing, whatever that is. These guys gotta shut up. Let's see. Our terrestrial radio station hosts are always expanding and questioning who in the world made the bonehead decision to buy this show. If you'd like to hear this show on your favorite radio station, send them a note, a bottle of Scotch, and copy us as well. You know what? Just send us a copy of the bottle of Scotch. We don't need anything else. And Ryan is saying a very tall bottle of Ardbeg.
Please.
You can reach us online anytime at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our daily tasting floats flow out on Twitter every day. @SipsudSmokes is our handle. And our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news. Do us a favor and take the time to rate this episode. You got to listen to us butcher the Gaelic language here for free. So if you're listening online, that would be great. If you could do us a big favor and actually rate this show, whatever you want to rate it. You can rate Ryan's ability of saying all these a lot better than me. So we also get to see your feedback as well, and that really helps us. I want to thank my co-host Ryan for being here.
It was a pleasure.
And Jason, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You both endured my redneck Gaelic. I really appreciate it. For now, I'm going to ask our listeners to join us once again. This is good old boy Mike. I'm going to ask you to keep on sipping.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see y'all next time.